The Authors Forum exists to inspire success. We will talk with authors and others in the publishing industry to bring you essentials and advice. Dr. Veronica Asagui is your host for Authors Forum.
Carolyn Miller. She's the author of 2 fiction books, Gothic Spring and Heartland. Let me start with your first book that I have in my hand. It's not the first book, right? The first one was
the first published one was Heartland, but actually Gothic Spring I wrote when I was in my 30s, so it really is my first book.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did it scare you? Victorine's character is very powerful.
Oh, yes.
And very dark, and it's just she's very powerful in all aspects. Scary in a way.
Yeah.
Did you get, as you kept writing the book, did you wonder like how far would she go?
I did. I did. She's a very dark character. My purpose in writing her, though, Veronica, was I wanted to look at a dark character. I mean, she's being destroyed by her environment and her society, and the only way she has of expressing herself is lashing back. But I also wanted to understand that we all have this darkness in us, and so it is kind of scary to bring that out and to look at it, but also to understand it's a universal trait. And what we need to do for one another is show more compassion. So while Victorine is a pretty tough cookie, you know, there's even a suggestion that she killed her parents.
Yes, the fire. You got that kind of underlined there.
She's a dark seed, but I don't want my audience to hate her.
Okay. Yes, because you have to understand where she came from, and without giving too much out of the character on her. What about Jeremy? I mean, you know, he has no selfish motives, it seems like he's...
No, you know, I think every novel that explores darkness has to have a touchstone, someone against whom this darkness is measured. And, you know, Jeremy is the classic blonde, blue-eyed boy innocent, who falls into Victorine's web, and she manipulates and uses him out of need, out of her own need, you know. So she's destructive, and she does end up destroying him, but he lets us know that, no, there is a moral standard in the book.
Yeah, I like that. I like that balance that you put in balance. What about her Aunt Julia? She also has a certain character that you want to tell us about.
If you look at most of the people in the book, or any of both books I've written, the dark side is there for all of them. Aunt Julia appears to be this wonderful, loving aunt who has taken in this orphan. But she is a spinster. She's never had a family of her own. And so she defines herself in terms of Victorine. She gets her claws in her and won't let this girl have a life.
Some of the village, they're quite comical. I mean, I like the way so you lived in England, that's why you got that whole flavor into it, and I love it.
Believe me, yes.
How did you see the humor part of it serving the plot?
Well, you know, Kyle Gibran said something, if you dig a well with tears, you can hold more joy. So when you have a tragedy, you have to have the fools around to kind of accentuate that tragedy so that it actually becomes heightened, because the other people around are being so trivial in their thinking and so petty, and yet Victorine and Jeremy and the vicar are really engaged in a cataclysmic struggle that makes Mrs. Snively with her big hats, you know, totally absurd.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Did you see the constraints put up Victorine in her day as being relevant to the lives of young women today?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, as I said, I wrote this book in my 30s, went through the women's movement, and went back and rewrote it with a mature, so I was sort of co-authoring with myself, you know. And the reason I wanted to write this book is that young women today, and I'm not lecturing at all, but you know, even in this country, they think they have arrived. You know, they think they can do anything they want. And I'm inviting them through Victorine to look at the barriers in their own society. You know, the battle for women's freedom is certainly not enjoined in many parts of the world, but we haven't won it in this country either.
Gothic Spring by Carolyn Miller. Where can someone find this book?
Both of these books are available at Amazon.com and Barnes & Noble.
And your website is?
Oh, I do have a website. I do a blog daily for people who are interested in the life of a writer and also to help them if they want to be writers.
Once again, your website is?
CarolineMillerBooks.com.
Okay, don't forget that. And thank you, Carolyn, for being our guest.
It was, Veronica.
You're very welcome. Until our next Authors Forum, have a most inspiring week.
Thanks so much. It's just lovely.